there is a constant debate on whether Yuta'S curse technique is Rika, or Rika is just an external storage given to Yuta to allow him to use his curse technique. I'll be examining all the information we have on this, and with some headcanon we'll decide on whether Rika is Yuta'S curse technique and take a deep dive into mimicry. First, Rika is a vengeful spirit back in Volume 0 and was created by Yuta cursing his loved one. Gojo states love is the most twisted curse, and with Yuta refusing to let Rika die, he ended up cursing his loved one into a vengeful spirit. While she was a vengeful spirit, she was called the Queen of Curses and was deemed to have endless curse energy. During Volume 0, Yuta could use curse techniques that were not his, for example using curse speech, and the first instance that could support Rika is Yuta's curse technique is she creates the medium for Yuta to use curse speech through the microphone. Yuta's first quote is "Rika, let's use that," and this could be the first instance to support people's idea that Rika is his curse technique. Moreover, not once did he use the curse technique outside the full use of Rika. However, he was beginning to learn the basics of Jujutsu and had a severe lack of fights in Volume 0 in general. To break the curse, Yuta gives his life to Rika to strengthen the love beam against Gege, and this was done by Yuta severing the master-servant relationship, and with Rika having no ill will to punish Yuta, she was then freed from being a vengeful spirit. Now in the fanbook it states that Rika is Yuta's curse technique, and this could be another thing to support that Yuta's curse technique is Rika. However, now I'll explain reasons why I think Rika isn't. Before that, I'll explain the new Rika that was given to Yuta. Yuta can use Rika's partial manifestation in his base form as shown a few times in these fights. 1. To hold Yuji down in the Yuji extermination, and use the partial manifestation in the Sandai colony against Kurorushi when he used Rika to protect the civilians and to destroy the bridge. But how did Yuta get this version of Rika? We are currently unaware, and this is where we divulge into headcanons of possibilities which I will explain. First, Yuta used a binding vow to get back Rika, but by doing so bounded his curse technique, curse tool storage, and constant supply of curse energy for the 5 minutes of Rika's full manifestation. And then second, Rika passed on and left on external storage to Yuta but at a cost, so in which the ring can only sustain the connection for 5 minutes, in which he gains the curse technique, constant curse energy supply, and the curse tool, and this is an even bigger headcanon because it's not stated, but his domain expansion. First, let me explain the binding vow. Kenjaku doesn't seem to take Yuta as a genuine threat to become the next Gojo, or to challenge him with his plans, from my understanding, and this was because his powers come from disdaining his loved one's soul, which is how the first vengeful spirit Rika was created. As stated before, the vengeful spirit Rika is gone, meaning her soul should have passed on based on Rika bearing no ill intent. This leads to my theory of a binding vow to keep Rika, by the restriction of his curse technique. Curse tools are bounded by the 5 minutes of full manifestation. This will also explain why he can partially manifest Rika in fights, but once connected with the medium of the ring, he can access his full capabilities and why that 5 minutes is so broken. Now to explain the domain expansion. You need your curse technique to imbue it into a barrier, but if Yuta cannot access his curse technique until Rika is manifested, in theory, he should only be able to use his domain during the 5 minutes, but of course this is headcanon, so take what I say lightly, but just based on my observation. Now from the TCB translation, it states that Rika left this version of Rika, which is a Shikigami, which compiled his curse technique and curse energy, which can only be sustained for 5 minutes. The best way to explain it is like an external hard drive, and the ring in the USB, which allows Yuta to access his full techniques, and this further supports my personal idea that Yuta's curse technique is mimicry, and that Rika is just a Shikigami, and potentially supports my theory that Rika has been used as a binding vow. Regardless of this, if that is not to be true, this could even indicate that it's just more of an external storage as stated in the TCB. However, in the Viz translation they make it out that Rika is his curse techniques, but I'll be explaining why I believe that is not true. But one of the key reasons why Yuta's curse technique is just mimicry is the fight in Sendai. After the domain expansion, Ryu says Yuta'S curse technique had not been replenished yet, but Rika was still out. This means things such as Inverted Spear of Heaven, the Curse Rope, targeted at Rika, would not shut off his curse technique, rather only at Yuta directly during the 5 minutes. So the only way to turn off his curse technique would be to actually target Yuta, but Rika would still be fully manifested until the 5 minutes is done, or potentially if she was exercised or lost. This further supports the idea that Rika is just an external storage rather than being his curse technique, and this could mean the fan book has been retconned, or full manifestation of Rika is what Yuta's previous curse technique was. This could further explain how Yuta was able to curse his loved one in the first place, which is already a crazy feat regardless. Now the final thing to explore is Yuta's curse technique on being conditional or unconditional. First, the reason I think it's unconditioned is first Kenjaku's statement where he says he can copy abilities, and Kenjaku is one of the few sorcerers with elite Jujutsu knowledge. Secondly, the fight against Ryu made an assumption that Rika biting Uro's arm is the reason he got the ability, but he also posed it as a question, which makes me think this was rather a fighter monologue of how he perceives potentially the ability could work, rather than concrete information on whether his ability is conditionless or not. Also, and this wouldn't be consistent with what we've seen from Yuta. First, we have never seen him bite or take blood from Inumaki, yet he used curse speech in Volume 0. When he also murked Juve, we didn't see him have Rika manifested or do any of what I just mentioned. So these two cases make it very difficult to use as a basis to explain how ability of having a condition, and I lean more so with it being unconditional. However, to counteract, that he should in theory have maybe more curse techniques from his fights with minor sorcerers, or maybe it's all part of his connection with Rika and it's in his storage that he can showcase in other fights. There's also a good theory going around that he has to understand the technique, and that would make sense for Uro, who disclosed her technique, and Inumaki showed it to him after Gojo explanation in Zero. However, this would not explain how he got Juve's technique and why I lean to it being unconditional. Overall, Yuta's curse technique from what we've seen is mimicry, and the current relationship with Shikigami Rika is yet to be explained. Lean towards my binding vow theory, however Gege will explain this in the future, and let me know down below if you agree or disagree with what I've said. I post a lot of JJK content, so make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe if you like videos like this, and all my links are in the description below, and thank you guys for watching.